live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. Good to be here, smack dab in the middle of the month of February. Hopefully I have more stable connection this week. I fingers crossed I should after some maintenance earlier this week, and we can get on with the show as we know and love. I want to give a salute to both these gentlemen, though, Joe Viso and Dominic Guanzon, handling their own last week for the big Argyle review, too. Guys did a wonderful job without me there and things like that. Show was great, show moved, so I very angrily watched it after I lagged out. It was one of the, and I've had to do that. I haven't had to do that recently, but I've had to do that a few times in the history of this show where I just sit all pissed off and listen to the show. Not at you guys or whatever, but at circumstance. You know, it's like it's like not coming off. It's like sitting on the bench during the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? But that was a fantastic show. Good job, both of you guys. We've got a fantastic show today, too, because we are talking not only about Lisa Frankenstein, brand new horror comedy directed by Zelda Williams, written by Oscar winner Diablo Cody, her first movie in about 6 years. We're also talking about this big Bombshell article that everybody's talking about. Dropped last week. Was super excited to read this. Read it twice, actually. It's called The Final Days of Coyote vs. Acme by Drew Taylor of The Wrap. So we're going to dive into this story. This was really a fascinating read. And I've talked about it before on the show, and obviously with you guys and stuff. I'm obviously a big football fan. I'm a big basketball fan. And there's a website called The Athletic that's a subscription-based service. I believe the New York Times owns it now. And The Athletic is known probably about 3-4 times a month. There's always a big story. There's always a big cover story, and that's part of the reason it's a pay-for site. Is like I think earlier this month too, Joe. You'll know of this too. It was like inside the New York Jets dysfunction when Rodgers went down, and they get a bunch of insiders from the organization to go like on the record and talk about like what a disaster things were. It's always usually bad shit. It's always usually like the worst teams. They did one. It's really good. They did one. They did one on the Bears. They did one on the Bears when Trubisky left in free agency. How him and Nagy didn't get along at the end.
Oh, okay.
And it was and how Nagy blew him off in one of the meetings and everything like that. A one-on-one meeting, Nagy blew him off completely, and it was corroborated by like 4 people. Like, I know, it was fascinating.
And now he has a Super Bowl ring, so, you know, hey.
He's got 2 of them now. He's got 2 of them. You know? It's like that great meme. It's like that great meme I love. The worst person you know just did something good. You know? But yeah, that the reason I even bring up The Athletic, though, is because Hollywood doesn't give these kind of stories very often. It's not like sports. Everybody talks in sports because everybody's trying to save their ass one way or another. Where, like, this... Like we don't get stories like this very often, and it usually takes monumental events or like the outing of terrible people, cough, cough, Dan Schneider, in order for a story like this to sort of materialize and then catch on and things like that. So I'll talk more about that for the second half of the show, but big credit to Drew Taylor and his sources for a lot of really juicy details and what a damn disaster this was and really how sad it is. We'll talk about it for the second half of the show after we touch on Lisa Frankenstein, the new horror comedy that we're going to talk about today. First things first, though, you gentlemen, great to see you both. Joe, how are you doing?
Doing good. Amazing Super Bowl Sunday, man. What a damn good game that was.
That was a great game. Fantastic game.
A lot of people were telling me, oh, man, that first half was kind of boring. And look, I get it. If you don't watch football as much, that might have been boring to you. To me, I was on the edge of my seat because I'm like, man, one defense is going to give up at some point. Like, someone's got to
That 49ers defense was like a freaking brick wall, dude.
It really was. And then you get to the second half, and it's just a completely different game. Offenses are not firing on both sides. It goes into overtime. That's like, we don't get that often in Super Bowls. It was, man, I was on the edge. I was rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs the whole time. So the way it ended, of course, I was happy. Even if they did lose, I would have been happy because it was like, damn, that was entertaining. Like, to keep me entertained from beginning to end like that. Kick-ass halftime show, too, with Usher. Great guest stars that appeared. Commercials were all right, but overall, man, I had a blast over the weekend just getting ready for Super Bowl Sunday and having it pay off that well.
I would have been happy with either team. I was rooting for Kansas City, and I won $30.
Nice.
So that was why I was rooting for Kansas City. I don't bet against Mahomes. I do not bet against. I took Mahomes against the Ravens 2 weeks ago too, even though I like Baltimore. No, great game. I would have liked to see the 49ers win though, even despite my bet, because obviously Brock Purdy is huge in Iowa.
Yeah.
He's huge out here. He's got his loyal fan base, obviously Iowa State Cyclone fans. I like Kyle Shanahan a lot too. That's 3 blown Super Bowls for him though now. Like, that's 3 blown Super Bowls, and he really cost him at the end. Not running that damn ball.
Yeah, man, I don't understand. You have someone like Christian McCaffrey, and you just don't use them. But okay, hey man, everybody has their downfalls. Seahawks.
I've defended Shanahan. I've defended Shanahan for like the last 7 years. I really am almost at my wit's end though.
Seahawks should have ran at the 2-yard line. We all have those moments in the Super Bowl.
But no, it was a really, really good game too. Also too, I saw Joe, you might have seen this, but Dom, it's funny you bring up the 49ers defense. That was probably their best playoff performance. They just fired the defensive coordinator today.
Wow.
They just fired Steve Wilkes today.
Really?
That's stupid.
Yeah.
To keep Mahomes like no touchdowns, like Tampa Bay had a great defense that year. They went up against them in the Super Bowl. It's why they won that Super Bowl as well, because like Tampa Bay just shut down Mahomes the whole time.
I don't think the defense lost that game for them.
And well, here's the one thing I'll say too. Going back to the Tampa Super Bowl, Joe, one of my all-time crazy stats. By that point, Mahomes was in his third year. I want to say third year. He was in his third year, second playing year. So he had played at that point, 34, 35-ish games, something like that, including more than that, maybe like 38, 39. The Tampa Bay Super Bowl loss for the Chiefs was Mahomes' first ever loss by double digits.
Yeah.
His first ever loss by double. The dude is insane.
Yeah.
The dude is friggin' insane.
Yeah, I've seen the comparison of like, he's the next Brady. He's the Jordan of football, because it's just entertaining to watch him play just alone. And it's like, yeah, I could see those comparisons for sure.
Wouldn't that be Brady?
What, as Jordan?
Brady was
Michael
more,
Jordan of football?
Brady was more.
The Larry Bird. No, I don't know.
He was more Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Where Kobe Bryant had like sort of a tactical approach to the game and an efficient approach to the game, and he would give you magic. Kobe would give you magic like at least once a night, but Michael Jordan would give you like 3 or 4 plays a game that were just like only he could do. That's why the Mahomes Jordan, it's either for Mahomes, you get a lot of style points a lot of the time. It's like that's why everybody compares Mahomes to Jordan or Steph Curry.
Like that fake out run they did where it looked like he handed it off to Pacheco, and then Mahomes just darted straight. I even fell for that. I was watching the TV. I'm like, damn, they got no yards again. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was like, I've been bamboozled.
It was a very good game.
Yeah.
It was a very, at the very least, it was a very good finish.
Yeah, it really was, yeah. Dom, how are you, by the way? I soaked up way too much time there.
No, none at all. Doing good, doing fine. I just want to talk about that Super Bowl more, because that's like one of the few times I actually I'm willing to talk about football, because during the regular season, even the playoffs, I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's not the Bears, I don't really care too much. But the Super Bowl game, I will sit down to watch, because there's something about it that I very much do enjoy. I did notice that they avoided showing Taylor Swift the first quarter, eased her in the second quarter. Second half, all bets are off. Just full reaction shot every single time, and I'm here for it. I'm not even the biggest fan of Taylor Swift. I just think it's funny.
It is, yeah.
So I know when he gets triggered by that shit. I'm like,
the average time was 55 seconds, and I saw a tweet saying, "No wonder why men think that's a long time."
Yeah. And also, this was reportedly the most watched telecast in American history.
Yeah.
I don't think world history, because I'm pretty sure there's some like soccer, football games, global games there. But in American history, and it's like it has to be because of the Taylor bump, without a doubt.
It's that.
Right?
It's that. I would think it's also a good rivalry going into the game again. As much people were like,
Sure.
I hope both teams lose. No, I was excited to see these two teams face off again after the
Same.
Super Bowl they had in 2020. You have of course, the commercial crowd. You have big trailers coming out for certain franchises that people are looking forward to.
Halftime show,
yeah, and
perfect.
then Usher. Yeah, I mean, like that's a big one too. I mean, like, he kind of blew up on social media all of last year, so to have him perform on the Super Bowl, it's like, all right, yeah. I mean, like, that's kind of just captured a lot of people's attention all over the place.
What a performer, dude.
Yeah.
Like you
True.
can't knock him for for being lazy on stage or anything, or
He
like he's
rollerbladed,
like, oh,
man.
Usher's a has-been. Bro, he still got it.
Yeah.
He
He does.
absolutely has it.
That was a solid halftime show. I'm normally not super crazy about the halftime shows either way, but no, he's fantastic.
Did
Yeah.
either I know we need to get to the movie. Did either of you tune, because I didn't tune into the Nickelodeon stream?
I
I
did.
did for a little bit.
Yeah,
I heard that was crazy.
I did.
Sorry, Steve. It's honestly, if CBS gets the rights again, which they will eventually, to broadcast the Super Bowl, I'm really hoping they put the Nickelodeon broadcast on Paramount TV, because I had to go online to actually watch it, because it was only on cable, so I had to like log in through like YouTube TV and everything on my phone. By the way, I've recently subscribed to YouTube TV. My dad did it because he's cut cable entirely because it cost him $200, and I was like, you could save so much more. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Dude, it's honestly, I can see like the appeal for it. You have nostalgia factor for people like us with SpongeBob and other characters bouncing all over the place and actually roasting the sport in general. And B, it's a great learning tool, I think, for anybody unfamiliar with football, and it's fun and approachable doing so too.
It's nice. It's not the first time the NFL has partnered with Nickelodeon, though.
Mhm.
This is obviously the biggest. This is the first time the Super Bowl's been simulcast on anything.
Yeah.
So it was on CBS and obviously on Nickelodeon, too. But they've done it for a couple of playoff games. The very first Nickelodeon broadcast for the NFL was in 2021 with the Bears and Saints playoff game.
Yeah.
Which was a perfect clown show for Nickelodeon. I watched that whole game on Nickelodeon.
So
That
did
was
I.
perfect. That
There
was
has-
perfect.
There has to be a bar out there in America where it's like, so you bought the package, right? You bought the Super Bowl game? No, I thought you bought it. Oh shit, what are we gonna do? Well, the Nickelodeon stream is there. So the whole bar, I don't know. There has to be a bar.
It'd be a unique bar that didn't have local cable but had the Nickelodeon.
I don't know. It's a dream. One can dream.
It was a little noisy. I think it was a little noisy. I think it
definitely
gets a
is,
little
yeah.
crowded, but I watched it for about half a quarter, and it's pretty good.
It's live jokes, right? It's
yeah.
live.
Yes.
So that's
They've shown
impressive.
like Tom Kenny and Bill Fagerbakke are in the studio with the NFL
Yeah.
TVs and everything like that and reacting to it. It's fun. It's fun. The crowning moment though for Patrick was I think it was the Rams Broncos game last season. It was last season. And that clip, Joe knows what I'm talking about. The clip that went viral was when Russell Wilson for the Broncos threw an interception, and the whole Russell Wilson slogan is "Let Russ cook," or like "Let Russ cook." He threw an interception, and it got ran back for a touchdown. And Patrick's commentating, and Patrick goes, "That's not what he wanted to cook."
In the Patrick voice. That's so funny.
Like,
I can hear it.
That was fun. He's like, the Broncos, and those are the horses, and there's Russ Wilson.
When Kansas City got their first touchdown in the third quarter, Tom Kenny went 3 hours later. They finally did it. Like it's.
I saw him
really
making
funny.
fun of Texas too. I saw Sandy Cheeks as the sideline reporter, and they're like, "He's from Texas," and Patrick like, "Oh, Texas," which is pretty funny. That was pretty good. Good little Super Bowl recap right there, gentlemen. We have to move forward, though. We have to persist on over here. Because I want to talk some Lisa Frankenstein, written by, raise your hand if you knew this. Who the hell knew that Diablo Cody, the writer of Jennifer's Body, the writer of Juno, the writer of Tully, which we reviewed back on Sleepless in 2018 on the radio. Who the hell knew? Did either of you guys know that Diablo Cody was from Lamont, Illinois?
No.
What?
I had
Like
no
right there?
idea.
Holy
Lamont,
shit.
Illinois. It's very disappointing. They don't honor her in some way, or if they have, I've missed it. And where did she go to college? University of Iowa.
Ah,
Blew me away when I was writing my review of Lisa Frankenstein, just like verifying that Cody's last movie was like 6 years ago. I was like, holy shit, she's a local girl.
Her filmography. I'm looking at her now. Her filmography is so like a type. It's
She's really good. Like I've always liked Cody, and Diablo Cody's had this interesting career where like her first screenplay was Juno, and that won her the best original screenplay Oscar. Then she did Jennifer's Body, which was really, I need to rewatch that one because I've grown interested based on how that movie's been reevaluated. But that movie was really butchered in marketing. That was
Yeah.
really a case of mismarketing. And then after that, she did that young adult movie with Charlize Theron, which I feel like nobody remembers, which was a really good
It
movie.
is. It's a really good
And,
movie.
a really sad movie too. And she did that one, and I feel like nobody watched it or nobody remembered it. And then Tully came in 2018, and Tully was a fascinating movie. This like fantasy drama
Yeah.
with Charlize Theron again. And then I had to verify when the trailer for this came out, and then again when I was reviewing this movie, that like yeah, she has not done anything or written anything since Tully. Um, and this movie definitely oozes her style, though. She didn't direct it. The movie was directed by Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin Williams. Catherine pointed that out to me when I think during the opening credits, because I'm like, yeah, his daughter is named Zelda. And sure
And
enough, that is
it
Robin Williams' daughter.
and traditionally, most people named Zelda used to be named after Zelda Fitzgerald, F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife, famed
Right.
wife. But no, Robin Williams was a capital G gamer. Like he loved video games, and he specifically named Zelda Williams after the Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
Like straight up.
Awesome. That's awesome.
One of the best Nintendo commercials too is the remake of
Yes.
Ocarina of Time, and he's
If I
narrating
watch that
about
right
him.
now, I may cry.
Yeah, he's
I will straight up
narrating
cry.
about him playing it and saving Zelda, and he's actually instead you think he's just narrating a commercial, but no, he's telling his daughter Zelda like what he loves about the game, and it's like, oh, dude.
Oh God, I can't. I am not emotionally prepared to watch that. I didn't know about that. I'm not emotionally prepared
I'll
for
send
that
it
at
out
all.
to the show. It's a damn good commercial.
But Catherine Newton is in this movie too. Cole Sprouse is in this. Cole Sprouse has forged a very nice acting career for himself for sure post Sweet Life. And then you have a lot of different other people in this thing, like Carla Gugino's in it. She's very good in it too. Plays like the evil stepmom in this thing. This movie is, in a nutshell, it's a horror comedy. It's a lot like how like gothic movies used to be in the 90s and the late 80s. This movie has like quite a bit of Heather's energy. It has a plot very similar to Edward Scissorhands. It's got a very Tim Burton vibe to it. And it reminds you too, whatever you think about this movie, it reminds you that we don't see these movies too much anymore. These sort of unabashedly like unique sort of eclectic style movies that have this like gothic, aesthetic to them. And I'd say visually, this thing is really nice looking. Costume wise, this thing is a very nice looking movie. I think, in essence, the story, it's set in 1989, I think, and it revolves around a girl named Lisa, played by Catherine Newton, who's like the outcast of her school. She's got a stepmom that she can't stand, played by Carla Gugino. And essentially, what happens is like most girls her age, she goes to the cemetery and like hangs out at the cemetery by her favorite headstone and wishes that the dead man whose headstone she likes comes back to life. He comes back to life in the form of an undead Cole Sprouse, and he's missing some parts. But that's nothing a little murder can't take care of. That is essentially the plot here for Lisa Frankenstein. This movie has a lot going for it, and this movie has a lot to like about it. But there's a lot here that I feel like makes it either half baked or a bit too beholden to the movies that it pays homage to. That's where I'll leave things. I will go to you, Dom. What are your general impressions of Lisa Frankenstein? This because I'm very interested to hear your guys' opinion on this too. I'm
Same,
excited
yeah.
to talk.
I have a feeling that we're going to land on the same page here, but yes, you stole my word right out of my mouth. Half baked is the term for it. And that really hurts because I actually did enjoy this movie. Like just without being too critical of it at the current moment, I was like, you know what? I'm vibing with this. The actors are all on point here. The vibe is good. It's a little tired at this point. The 80s thing, I've said that multiple times on this show. But when it's done right, it still hits to a good degree. And, I guess I avoid it enough now these days where it's like when it does come back in a good way, when it's done correctly, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm cool with this. And that's exactly where I found myself. halfway through, it's like, you know what? This plot, these characters, and particularly Catherine Newton's performance here, was really growing on me. And the play with her sister, or her, I should say, stepsister,
I love
is
Taffy,
really,
dude. Taffy is one of my favorite
dude.
characters.
I actually did a little research here. I'm like, why does she look familiar? And so Liza Soberano,
Yes.
I had not recognized. I had never seen her in anything before, but I'm like, is she Filipina? She is confirmed Filipina. An incredible story where she was born.
Solidarity.
Yeah, 100%. She was born in the States, but moved to I'm just reading off for Wikipedia. Moved to Manila at age 10, and she became a big, TV movie star, romantic rom-com star there. And then this is her American debut. I'm like, bro, you got a good career ahead of you, because this was a great showcase of your talents. And again, everyone here was awesome. Cole Sprouse, as the creature, was so funny, dude. A very good nonverbal role. Those are always a testament to your physical prowess.
Yeah.
And just his stoic 1800 stance for everything was really fun to watch. The Sprouses, both of them, the twins, Zach and Cody, man, they are. I think they got not a spectacular career here,
Yeah.
but it's like they seem to be doing pretty well for themselves.
Cole's done
And,
great, like post
Yeah.
Sweet Life and everything with going on. Yeah, it's not a great show, but hey, he got money for Riverdale and everything, and even the movies he's done, I think he's put in a good performance. Dylan, while hasn't been performing as much, he's a comic book writer now and an artist. Like he has his own independent comic.
What the hell?
Yeah, and it's actually like selling pretty well.
Hell yeah,
For
dude.
him. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think he's
For child actors,
I think he's developing
yeah.
a video game next. Like he's just out there, like just doing other shit now.
good for him, dude. It's like 1 in a million you'll get a Ryan Gosling, but for child actors' careers to wind up like that, perfect.
Yeah,
That's all I would ever want myself. It's like, hell
Sun
yeah, dude.
Eater is the name of his comic series. It's
There you
called
go.
Sun Eater.
That sounds pretty badass. But regardless, yes, the cast is firing all cylinders here. One of my favorite phrases, and I try not to use it too much, but yeah, very much so. And I guess I'll leave it there, and then we'll pivot to critiques later. But I will say I will lead it by, or I will uh, whatever. I will say that it is yes, half baked, unfortunately, and that it definitely left me with like, oh god damn. If only it tie itself up a little cleaner here and there, Joe.
This is the movie that made me go, I can't wait to see Catherine Newton in more stuff, because it's slowly been like that for me over time with previous roles. I thought she was good in Detective Pikachu. She's a very small character in that, but I thought whenever she was on screen, she was very much eating up that role. I thought she was fun and freaky, but she's not the focus of Freaky. Vince Vaughn is. It's the body swap movie, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. It's Freaky Friday, but just a horror style comedy.
That's where she was. Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
But that movie focuses on Vince Vaughn with because Vince Vaughn becomes the girl and the girl becomes Vince Vaughn. Blah blah blah. Quantumania. I said this before. Like her and Paul Rudd are the two best parts about that movie and their connection. And they have actually probably the best scene where she's about to get killed by the villain Kang in the movie, and it was like, oh wow, I'm actually like feeling something here. I've been waiting for a movie. It's like, man, I just need her to really showcase her acting capabilities. And it really sucks to see that this only made like $3 million, even though I knew this was going to appeal to most people. I asked how many friends wanted to go see this with me. Nobody batted an eye towards it. I was like, damn, that's like kind of sucks to hear, because like you, Dom, I saw the trailer and I said, that looks like fun. That looks like campy 80s horror comedy fun. And I was like, and
it's played straight. It's not like, hey, the 80s,
Yeah.
No.
They use the 80s effectively well for a lot of jokes too. Like there's like a great piano gag later on in the movie where Cole Sprouse, he's from like the 1700s and whatnot, but he knows how to play piano. And him and Catherine Newton play an infamous 80s song that had me actually kind of chuckling throughout the movie. This movie to me it's saved a lot by its look. So credit to Zelda Williams on that. Great job when it came to that. Its jokes and its performances. The story here, not so much. I found the story to kind of be lackluster, And I know we'll get into critiques later. I'll save that and everything, but everything else that I said there, those three factors, kept me going throughout this movie. At least kept my attention, made me go, all right. I started out this year with Argyle and God, what else was the other movies I saw? Like I can't remember. Mean Girls. There we go. And it's like Mean Girls I liked, but Steve gave it 1.5, but I totally see why. I totally see why anybody cannot like that. Will not like that movie. Argyle, I didn't like it and everything. This was like, okay, of the two movies, three that I actually seen, we just didn't review one here on Sleepless, but of the three movies that I've seen this year, four now, including this one felt like the most like, I won't say coherent because I said this has story issues, but I was very much like feeling like this is a director's vision, and I'm watching it play out actually, and I'm watching the writer actually like have a style to their writing when it comes to their comedy and everything. It really felt like, hey, this feels like a film made by artists that wanted to make entertainment. With Mean Girls, even though I liked it, it very much is just like, hey, we're making a Mean Girls remake. And Argyle, I mean, hey, it is Matthew Vaughn's stuff, but I mean, it was too much of that stuff. Yeah, performances here across the board, like Dom was saying, I love her stepsister, played by Lisa Sobrano, Taffy, Carla. How you pronounce her last name, Steve?
I think it's
Gugino playing the stepmom Janet. Not in the movie a whole ton, but God, when she is on screen, she is soaking up every minute of it, man. I am cracking up.
Literally Nurse Ratched levels of like, go to hell. Like
I'm cracking up at everything she's saying and overreacting to so much. The dad in this movie, played by Joe Kress, he might as well just have walked off Stranger Things and then walked onto the set of this movie because he's literally the same exact character. And yeah, Cole Sprouse, man, dude, great silent comedic performance, man. Like, it's so damn good that I would love to see him do something like this again. If they wanted to do like some, I don't know, like silent black and white film, like, I know a lot of people would say, oh, like an Oscar bait film, but like, dude, I would love to see Cole Sprouse do something like that after seeing his capabilities here. It's overall a fun time. I enjoyed it from beginning to end, but I will say, and we can go into our critiques after the break, and I'll just tease it with this. The third act of this movie really falls apart for me, and it made me go, wait a minute, that's what this movie's actually about? I didn't get that at all because you were juggling so many things, and I guess I was just having so much fun with the movie that maybe I just missed it, or I was just having so much fun with how much they were juggling that I didn't think this was really the big thing that they were focusing on.
Lot to go off of there, and I know we're butting up against the Zoom sponsored intermission break over here in just a couple of minutes, but one thing that's really interesting about this movie, and one thing I didn't catch it really immediately, but it, something that kind of registered and like, when I was writing about this movie is that one of the more special aspects of this, it's obviously Williams and Diablo Cody taking, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and sort of reworking it into an 80s movie. The interesting part here is something that isn't done so often, which is despite the fact that we get so many Frankenstein like, reboots and like movies that copy that formula, is that the character in this movie, Lisa, played by Catherine Newton, is 18 in the movie. She's the same age as Mary Shelley was when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. Oh, and I think that's a fascinating little nugget in this movie because we don't, Frankenstein obviously written by a young woman. We don't really have, I struggle to think of another one where a story like this, where the story of Frankenstein is from the perspective of a girl who is the same age as the woman who wrote the book. And I think that's a fascinating little element that they really don't overplay here. If you really don't know that going into this, I don't think it's easy to figure that out. But I said earlier, though, the vibes in this movie and the dialogue reminded me a lot of Heathers, and that's one of the quintessential 80s teen movies, too. It's a really good movie with Winona Ryder. And Sprouse's corpse character, who's known only as the creature in the movie, he's got a lot in common with Edward Scissorhands. You can see a lot of the movie's influences kind of clear as day here. And as Joe said, too, it's very campy. It doesn't try to play itself too seriously, which is nice. Which is part of its charm and its detriment, I think, because it's so beholden to like its genre ancestors and the movies that you're immediately going to recall when watching this thing. I don't know if it finds a really great way to distinguish itself and make sort of its own, like, give its own stamp on the material, so to speak. And that's why I said half baked earlier. I don't think it does a really good job of maybe like asserting itself in a crowded genre, really kind of recalling the spirit, but not like the specifications or the specificities of it. Am I making any sense here?
No, you are. What you're saying is kind of, yeah, like where I do kind of find fault in this movie. Dom, do you feel the same?
I definitely do. So I think we're all lined up here. I don't want to say the movie didn't do the work, but it's like some of these character arcs are okay. I don't know if I'm implying it. I would almost need to watch it a second time. I was like, am I implying this, or did this kind of come out of nowhere? This kind of love, this kind of relationship here. I think the stepsisters were the strongest, I want to say, just because they have so much screen time that can feel complete. I know I'm talking very
Their
vague to avoid
chemistry was
spoilers.
so good too. Like I would love to see
It was so
them
damn good.
like
Yeah,
together
that was my
again.
favorite part of the movie in
Yeah.
terms of like characters and story. Yeah, that it didn't clean up as neatly. It tried to at the end, at the very end. And if you're not looking for characters and stuff, it can feel good. It can feel like, oh yeah, that felt complete, that felt whole. But I feel like if you, I don't know. Do you see what I'm? Do you understand what I'm saying? I think you do.
No, I
Um,
do, because like again, like I think the third act, like when you try to resolve a lot of these plot lines with these characters and everything, it all comes closing to an end with almost all of them by the end of the third act.
mhm.
And other than Taffy and Lisa's relationship, kind of like, like the conclusion to what happens there, I felt like all the other ones were just like, that was kind of unfulfilling, or I just didn't see that was like the purpose of this character, honestly. Like I was just kind of like, huh, okay. And I don't want to give away what happens, but just like, yeah, where they go in terms of Cole Sprouse's character and how they conclude the relationship between him and Lisa, I was like, I mean, I thought that's what this movie was about, but I never felt like the movie was really building towards that until the last 20
Yeah,
minutes.
like what was the point of 2 minutes, 3 minutes? I know, but like, what was kind of the point of the creature? If I mean, plot wise, yes, but like emotionally, I don't. Was he a manifestation of Catherine Newton's like
Yeah,
fears?
that's
Like
why I'm like, I
yeah.
wouldn't mind
teenage
rewatching the
anxiety?
movie again to really like see those kinds of things. Because like again, I mean, like Jennifer's Body is like another one where Diablo Cody wrote, and it's like, oh hey, like upon revisiting, there's a different perspective here. I still don't think because the thing, I still don't think Jennifer's Body is all that great, but I totally have much more respect for it now than the first time I watched it. But I'm willing to do that with Lisa Frankenstein, because it's like, hey, I did enjoy this movie, so I wouldn't mind rewatching it again when it comes on the streaming, just to see if anything.
That's what I said in my review. Actually, it's funny we bring that up because I still need to rewatch Jennifer's Body. I said in the beginning of my review, though, I talked about how like it wasn't until the Me Too movement that Jennifer's Body sort of got a second look, and then Diablo Cody came out, and like props to her for like biting her tongue for all this time. I know I wouldn't have been able to do that, but she came out and said the movie was completely botched in the marketing. They wanted it to appeal to teen boys that
Yeah.
liked Megan Fox and Transformers. He's like, they completely ignored the fact that movie, Diablo Cody's like, I wrote that movie with girls in mind. Like, I wrote that movie for young women. And I said, though, in my review of this, I said, I still need to rewatch Jennifer's Body, but I said, I'm willing to accept my self-awarded future mulligan on Lisa Frankenstein for the future. Because I can see this, like, it felt formless by the end of it. Then it kind of
Mhm.
feels formless, and like Joe even said too, the way it does shake out, which is hard to dance around without giving it away, but we won't. Like, I agree. I was almost like, well, I don't know. I don't really understand the purpose now.
Yeah.
In the way, or at least where I thought I was being led down what particular path I was being led. With that in mind, we got just a little over 60 seconds. We got to take our Zoom sponsored break. We're going to come back here. I got a couple other quick points we can touch on for Lisa Frankenstein. Parlay that into a discussion about what the hell's going on with Warner Brothers Discovery, one of the favorite recurring topics of this program. We'll be back here in about 60 to 90 seconds. Do not go anywhere. This is Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. Back and better than ever after our Zoom sponsored intermission. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We are talking about Lisa Frankenstein, the brand new Zelda Williams movie written by Oscar winner Diablo Cody, who again is a Lamont, Illinois native, and nobody bothered to tell me that either. Had to find that
And
one
she
out
went
on
to
my
Bennett, according to Wikipedia. She went
own.
to
Yeah, she
Bennett.
went to Bennett.
Yeah, dude.
It's insane.
She's a local gal.
Unbelievable.
We gotta get Diablo Cody on the show, man.
You know,
Actually, Steve could do that.
yeah, I was gonna say
Local
maybe
gal, assuming she identifies as gal. But like, yeah, dude, hell yeah.
yeah, I'll start that. I'll start it. My booker ever gets me her, I'll start that interview. Favorite stomping grounds in Lamont. Have you ever been to Westmont? Like, totally just ask you. It'd be 10 minutes. You have to give me 10 minutes just to talk about local spots. But moreover, though, you know the one thing I'll pivot here. I'll do a hard pivot here. You know, it's one thing I noticed about this movie, and it's easy to overlook. And I don't want to go too hard because this is technically Zelda Williams' first feature debut, like directorial wise, her directing debut rather. It's easy to overlook because the costuming in this movie is so good. The production of this movie is so good. The production design, the costumes, the wardrobes, everything looks great. It's easy to mask though. This movie is very flaccidly directed. This movie is very, very much bland in the way it was shot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reverse shot happening. There's a lot of basic framing. I don't think the world building is particularly strong either here. And that was something that kind of ate at me the longer it went on. And again, it's easy to overlook. It's not and this sounds mean, it's not a well-directed movie. It's a well-produced movie. It's a well-costumed movie. It's not really well shot. It's got a lot of like first director sort of vibes.
It does, movie. Yeah.
Like, and I hate to put it like that, but that like, was something that stuck out to me.
Can you name a shot that really like, wow, that's a that's a shot? Not to say that that's always a metric, because there is art and subtlety, but yeah, I think if I were to look at this again. The tanning bed? No, not really.
And I don't critique frame. I'm not a critic, I feel like, that critiques framing very often. Like, it's almost like editing. Like, like, I don't think this movie's poorly edited, but it's like editing. And that's the sad part with editors, is that, like, you don't really notice editing unless the movie's, like, chronologically different or, like, structured different, or the editing's bad. Like, good editing kind of hums. And I feel like with directing in a way too, you can kind of get lost in that in a way if you don't really pay attention to it. But there's a lot of just basic framing going on here that I think comes to the forefront when you look at how beautiful this movie is. And it's like there's really nothing going on with the way that this movie is shot that like adds any sort of dimensionality to it.
Let me say this. You can get lost in the micro of like, maybe you can't articulate why, but if you feel it, it's like, because halfway through this movie, I was like, I need a little oomph here. I'm missing it. I'm not saying you need to go full like Scott Pilgrim and go way over the top, but like,
no,
I feel like there should be a little more here compared to, with what we're dealing with. We've literally got a Frankenstein creature here, and I don't know, a little bit more style, a little more of this. It's very hard to say, but Steve, I think you said it pretty succinctly. But the evidence is kind of in the macro of your waiting for something to kind of happen, and I don't know if that's the pacing of it as well, but maybe going back to that story. But yeah, no.
They get a lot. I think a lot of the heavy lifting of this movie is done by everything else but the camera work. It's like the music even too. There's a lot of songs of popular cover songs of popular songs here.
Yeah,
like
I was doing that trailer shit where it's like, oh, usually this is reserved for the trail. It's like, oh, one piano note and then a very slow version of a normally fast song. But yeah.
Yes, it does that a lot. It kind of leans on that too. And then you have the cast too, which I don't know. I know you guys touched on it more. I didn't really talk much about it though. But like, because I really agree with you guys though, the cast keeps this material afloat for the most part too. I think Carla Gugino, who like Joe said is not in it very much, but she's got that great scene when the creature's roaming around the house and she's trying to listen to her audio tape or whatever and eat. That's a great scene. And then you also have Catherine Newton, who I think probably watched Heathers and watched Edward Scissorhands and like tried to emulate Winona Ryder, which is not a bad person to emulate. And kind of even looks like her in certain scenes too.
Yeah.
I think she does really well here. I think Cole Sprouse does a really good kind of like physical performance here because he doesn't have any dialogue in it either. I think the performances are all good over here. I think a lot of this irons out some of the flaws here that stop this movie from being great and even in a way like almost stop it at pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Were we gonna pivot to final thoughts?
We can. I'll go last since I just sucked up the most of the air of the second half here. So we'll go Joe, Dom, and then myself for final thoughts and star ratings.
For me, this is gonna be 2.5 out of 4 stars. Not a bad 2.5 out of 4 stars. Something I definitely wouldn't mind rewatching and giving it another second chance to see if maybe there's something I did miss, and see if it improves over time. We mentioned all the things that are positive about this movie. I really did have a fun time with it. And if anything, it's made me want to go and watch Tully again because I do like Diablo Cody's writing. And just looking back, like I was on the IMDb page for her and just looking at like just a few snippets of like pictures from Tully, I was like, damn, that movie is written so damn good. And I really love how that movie ends too. That is just like, I might want to actually recheck that. I can't wait to see what Catherine Noon stars in next in terms of horror. I know she's going to be in that upcoming Abigail movie, which I'm looking forward to now because of this movie even more. And I can't wait to see if Zelda Williams just continues to kind of go down this route of horror comedy or whatever she plans on doing and hopefully grows stronger as a director to where like, hey, there's more cohesion to her filmmaking. She gets a more of a stylized, cinematographer to like play with shots more, like you guys were saying. Overall, I mean, it's a fun time, not a great one, but overall, I still think it might be even worth checking out if anything we've been saying or if the look at this movie just seems appealing to you. So yes, 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Real
The
quick, I don't want
vibes.
to. I don't want
Oh,
to go too. I'm sorry. I have to bring this up here because I just found this out myself here. Joe, you mentioned Abigail. You mentioned Abigail, which is directed by the Radio
The
Silence
Silence
guys
guys,
who
yeah.
made who made the most recent Scream movies. Did you know that this movie was actually? You know how we had like Renfield and the Invisible Man that were reworked from that Dark
mhm.
Universe thing?
Mm-hmm.
This movie is that too.
Yes, and
This movie, I didn't know that Abigail is reworked from its source material of Dracula's daughter.
yep.
And it was so it's
Huh.
Abigail is not the Dark Universe is dead. Abigail was not part of the Dark Universe, but that was how it was conceived.
Yeah.
And that's why we're getting it.
I
It plays into the Renfield Invisible Man of like remodernizing like this classic story. I think that's fascinating. I just
yeah.
found that out right now. I figured I wanted to mention that.
I'm digging that because like I said, Dom, I swear to God, I'll let you go. I think Radio Silence, they're good directors, at least the two that directed Scream. But it was time for them to move on from Scream. Because I did think Ready or Not was a way better film than both their Scream movies, and this looks more like okay, they have more control, they could do more what they want, like they did with Ready or Not. And after I saw the trailer when I went to go see this movie, I was like, damn, I can't wait for this movie. This is like, I'm really looking forward to Abigail.
Yeah, man. The vibes on this movie and for this whole cast is really good, really solid. As a directorial debut, not bad, not bad from Zelda Williams. I've seen a lot worse. And we'll see. Zelda has had her hands in a lot of different works, voice acting for TV, a couple of video games, apparently, music videos, of course. That's some good work there. So I'm looking forward to more from her, just to see how she grows as an artiste, and for the rest of this cast, particularly Catherine Newton, and of course Liza Soberano, who I'm sure I'm butchering that name, because like that was the strongest relationship in this, even stronger than the creature, funny enough, for me. But yeah, This is a very interesting movie that I do think deserves to be watched. According to Wikipedia, it's not doing so hot in the box office with a deficit of 9 million. It's a low budget though.
It could easily
So
make it back, hopefully. Like maybe it could linger
yeah,
in the top five, just at like slot number 4 or 5. Because I really don't know anything until Dune that like people are really going to go see at the theater.
it is interesting actually, real quick, introducing a new point to my conclusion. Sorry, but like $13 million, which I'm assuming doesn't include marketing, but $13 million for budget is actually insanely good for the movie that they got. Consider, the costuming, music, everything like that. And if if the worst parts of this movie, which wasn't horrible, if the worst parts of this movie really was just the writing and some of the camera or shot choices, then this was remarkably budgeted really well. So if anything, Zelda Williams has got that unlocked, which is the budgeting. Which is a hidden talent for many directors. But regardless, yeah, man, 2.5 out of 4 stars here, and I'm looking very much forward to what everyone has, particularly for our homegirl Diablo Cody, apparently, to see what's coming up next for everyone, man.
Yeah, they stretched $1 with this thing for sure in terms of the budget. That's for damn sure. And I was reading some reviews of this thing after I wrote mine, and I was shocked to see some of like the 1 star and like one and
No,
a half star. I
uh-uh,
saw a couple half-star reviews for this movie, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, people just dole these ratings out like
that's
like
knee
nothing.
jerk.
I really think so. I feel like this is really a hard movie to openly dislike. I think that there's a lot in this movie that, especially maybe even just for the fact that we don't get movies like this super often. But I think the cast and I think the sets and I think the production and the look of the movie, I think it's enough to elevate it to being like, like pleasant. I think it doesn't have a second gear though. It lacks a second
Yeah.
gear. I think that makes it resonant. Maybe that changes on a rewatch. I'm not ruling that out. I might even be wrong about Jennifer's Body, but for right now, it's 2.5 out of 4 stars. I'm glad it exists.
Wow.
I'm glad
Our stars aligned.
our stars aligned with this one for damn sure. No, but like I said, there are a lot of things I did like about this movie, and the cast is a big part of my affection for this movie too. I think everybody does a really good job here. That'll conclude our Lisa Frankenstein review, though. I want to give us at least 10 minutes on this topic, though, because this thing, I don't think we've talked. Did we talk about this yet? I don't think we've touched on this yet. I think something else happened. Because we talked extensively about Batgirl and we've talked about Scoob
We've
Holiday Haunt.
We've memed a lot about this in the group chat, but in terms of on the show, no, not
we've
really.
talked about it on the show in terms of just similar topics similar
Yeah,
to
yeah.
it. We never gave
Adjacent.
it. Yeah, there we go. Better word of saying it. We never gave it its own spotlight.
The primary litigant has now arrived. Coyote versus Acme.
Yes, indeed. This is such a sad story. And again, we I don't think we've done a topic on this yet, but I'm kind of glad we haven't because I feel like we have the definitive story right now. And it's still up in the air what's going to happen with this thing. I think we know what's going to happen with it, but it's not solidified yet. And I think we're going to find out here in the next like 10 to 12 days. But Drew Taylor with The Wrap wrote a great piece. It's called The Final Days of Coyote versus Acme, offers rejections in a roadrunner race against time. That's a 5-star headline right there. You can read the story. It's behind a paywall on The Wrap, but you can read it. It's been cross-posted on yahoo.com. You can read it, which is how we read it. But
I'm so happy about that.
I am too. I have the physical copy right here that I printed off and stuff like that. I've read this twice now. This is a fascinating, sad story. If you're not aware, Coyote versus Acme was a movie that was supposed to technically come out last year, and then it got shelved or they got pushed to this year. It's made by Warner Brothers Pictures, which, as we know, has been on very shaky, unsturdy ground over the last couple of years, really since they acquired Discovery, amassed Discovery's debt, and put in the former head of Discovery Channel, David Zaslav, in as CEO. And Zaslav has seemingly been on a kamikaze mission to fucking ruin this company. Like, I don't really know of any other way to put it. like
He's like a sleeper agent for Disney or something. I don't know what it is.
it's amazing. It's really amazing. You know what I mean? Not to make another Bears reference, another football reference over here, Joe, but it's like when we hired Luke Getzey from the Packers to do our offense. You know what I mean?
That's a
It's like,
deep cut, Steve. Go to hell.
hey, if you're a Bear fan, man, I tell you, like Luke Getzey got fired, and I saw a tweet online with people reading newspapers that said Luke Getzey's fired, and it said Hitler is dead on the newspapers.
Oh my God.
But anyway, have fun, Vegas, with that coach. Anyway, the final days of Coyote versus Acme, though, essentially what this story does, though, is it breaks down how Warner Brothers, Zaslav, and his new team, basically, this movie was commissioned and made under the old regime of Warner Brothers. This movie's actually been in the works for quite a while. I remember when it was like in development some years ago and stuff, because it's based in the Looney Tunes world. It's obviously based off the Wile E. Coyote character, the Roadrunner, Acme Corporation from the Looney Tunes. It was going to be like a Looney Tunes back in action movie, a live action animated hybrid. Well, it got caught in the crosshairs when Warner brought Discovery and switched the front and switched essentially the decision makers and the executives. These executives didn't want it, and there's only one executive from the old regime that was on the team that commissioned this movie, a part of the front office now. That's what Drew Taylor writes about, and basically they want to wash their hands of this thing completely clean, which I don't understand in the slightest. Obviously, Warner Brothers made headlines when Batgirl was shelved, and then Scoob Holiday Haunt was shelved. Warner Brothers' whole thing now is they want to bring movies back to the theaters. That's why Blue Beetle, which was originally supposed to be an HBO Max/Max release, that's why that came to theaters. Yeah. They essentially want movies to go back to theatrical distribution. And I just don't understand why this movie is also now threat of being literally deleted as a tax write-off. That's essentially what they want now. This movie cost $70 million, which in the grand schemes for an animated live action movie is not a lot of money, especially for Warner Brothers. And there's a lot to go in off this article, but one of the most fascinating, though, is when rumblings of this internally that they were going to shelve this movie, Coyote versus Acme. The interesting elements of this was how they basically wanted to listen. They set it up so studios like Netflix could offer them money to acquire the distribution rights to this movie.
I laughed so hard at this passage.
But they didn't. What they essentially did, and this is from Drew Taylor's piece, was Warner Brothers, which stood to make 35 to 40 million on the tax write-down by canceling Coyote versus Acme, wanted something in the ballpark of 75 to 80 million from a buyer. And what's more, they wouldn't allow the interested studios to counter Warner Brothers' offer. It was a take it or leave it situation, one that other studios didn't even know they were entering into. So they didn't know they didn't know this wasn't a negotiation. This was a take it or leave it offer. And essentially, though, Taylor writes it beautifully. Behind the scenes, the noose around the movie's neck was tightening. And it goes on to talk about how the executives from Warner Brothers Discovery skipped the damn screening. And I keep going back to the Batgirl thing because this wasn't really a Batgirl situation. Batgirl was said to be, and again, this is Zaslav and his cronies talking, unreleasable. Unreleasable was the word that they kept using with that because of the look of the movie. This thing tested really well with parents and its target audiences and test screenings. This thing tested extremely well. And I have a hard time seeing this thing not making money in the summertime in theaters.
Compared to The Flash?
Compared to The Flash or Blue Beetle? I don't see a world
Michael
where this
Keaton?
At
least Blue Beetle had the, Latino aspect to it that I know some Latino friends of mine that definitely were interested. But in terms of you had Michael Keaton in both movies. I don't know.
So where we're at now, though, and I'm going to bounce it over to you, Joe, and you, Dom, to talk about what you take. This is basically my spiel on the whole thing, though, is essentially the date to look at on this thing is February 23rd. That's when Warner Brothers Discovery is having their fourth quarter earnings call. And this is again from Taylor's piece. Many on the film's team feel that the studio will use the ending of the quarter to get the movie off the books for good. And so we're about, what, 9 days from that happening, 9, 10 days.
Yeah.
So they might just delete the entire damn thing. And I still don't understand how that like $35 to $40 million tax write-off is better than maybe a $50 million offer from another studio. You know what I mean? That's the other thing I don't understand either. It's like they won't even take what they paid for or close to it to get the movie made to sell it to somebody else. They want this thing completely gone. And I don't know if I think that's part of the reason is like they want to keep the Looney Tunes brand with Warner, but then they're going to criminally misuse it like this and shelve a movie like this. This whole thing is nuts. And you've seen over the last month, hashtag Save Coyote versus Acme trending on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called. And you're seeing the public outcry for this thing, which is really, really sad for all involved. I'll bop it over to you, Joe, though. Your reactions to Taylor's piece.
My reaction to the piece is that, yeah, it just made the whole situation even seem sadder than I initially knew. Hearing that someone like Paul Scheer saw it and spoke out and said, this captured the Looney Tunes feel more than any other like project that has been released with them. In terms of like theatrical releases, so like the most recent one being Space Jam: A New Legacy. It really sucks to see just how much this movie is just being shafted because XYZ reason, who knows? It's tax write off everything, but it's just like this is like the Looney Tunes are a household like name for Warner Bros. They are like it's like Mickey Mouse to Disney. That's how they should treat these guys.
It's a moral center for that company. I'm not even joking.
It really
That's
is.
literally how they got there.
It's a perfect way to put it.
If there's like a tax write-off, no, dude. You lose money for the Looney Tunes if you need to. Just out of respect because they put you on the map there. Like it's insane to me, like that. Again, like the article brings up, but executives skipped the script. They want nothing to do with this movie. It's almost like they treated like I'm not gonna go watch that kid shit. Like I gotta go watch the new superhero shit like Blue Beetle and The Flash. Those are the screenings I'm going to because that can make us bonzo dollars over here. Man, it really hurts to see too that like a movie starring John Cena, young actress Lana Condor, who's a big hit with young girls. Will Forte, who I absolutely love, and writer James Gunn, the guy that's going to be one of your DC executive heads.
Didn't even know James Gunn was on this project.
James Gunn
How
wrote
the
it
hell? That
and
makes
produced
the
it.
least sense now. Nothing makes sense now.
He's a story credit. Yep.
Story credit,
Oh
and
my
he produced
God.
it. I don't know how you can just take a project from the guy that's helping you rebrand DC and possibly save it and just go, yeah, fuck that. Like, we're just gonna toss it over to the side. We're not even gonna go visit it. Get that Superman movie done, James. That's what we want from you. Seeing all the leaks from the movie too, like the still images and everything, and the concept art, that hurts even more. Like the article uses that shot of Wile E. Coyote in court next to his.
I love that shot, by the way.
Yeah,
that's like the only shot that they're using, and it's so good.
It's so good. Next to his lawyer, played by Will Forte, I'm assuming.
Will Forte. That's the main thing. Coyote
Yeah.
actually looks a little like I don't know. Something about the outlines isn't that great, but Will Forte, that face is amazing.
That face looks good. You even have Lana Condor, like I said, in the background there, playing whatever character she might be, probably like also representing Wile E. Coyote. And it's just like, and talk about like the most original like thing they've decided to do with these Looney Tunes too. It's not like they're throwing them into a movie. Like Space Jam is just a basketball movie that they throw the Looney Tunes into. Back in Action was probably just an action movie for kids that they threw the Looney Tunes into. This has something for it. This is actually like, you could potentially see this actually being like a Looney Tunes like bit of Coyote going to court because Acme has failed him so many times in capturing the Roadrunner. It's like, that sounds genius and so much fun. I would pay money to go see that. But apparently Warner Bros. Doesn't want to pay the money for the movie to be released. So what does my opinion matter as a consumer to them?
Sad, but true.
Yeah, this is some like if you look at any evil CEO, in any story. This is actually the shit that this is the shit that we just assumed they were doing, but seeing it all laid out here to shit all over a Looney Tunes movie is the most perfect thing ever. And unfortunately, I wish it wasn't as tragic because morally, this just hurts.
Yeah.
We are at a stage now where CEOs are taking completed product. If this was halfway through completion, it'll be a bummer. It's like I don't know, the Nicolas Cage Superman movie, which wasn't even halfway. That was like just very concept, stuff. So whatever. It's like, all right, sure. That sucks a little bit. It probably would have sucked anyway, but
there's the other things too, like Spider-Man 4 gets announced and 2 days later it gets canceled. But it's like, all right,
sure,
that didn't even get leeway.
Whatever.
It was just announced. This is done.
This is a completed product, which all three of us are going to be looking at sources to see which animator leaks this thing, but hypothetically, but it's just so tragic that we are at a stage now where art is so cheap. We know art has always been cheap to those kinds of people, Zaslav and company. We know this since the beginning of time. It always has been. But to see it at this stage in 2024, this blatant and this disgusting, really strikes at the core of every artist of every stripe. And it's a really gross, tragic thing. And this is, look, the Looney Tunes have had a very, very hit or miss, low on the hit, high on the miss track record in the past couple decades. I don't even think the original Space Jam really was all that great. And I think that's pure nostalgia talking. The Looney Tunes sitcom was okay. I enjoyed parts of it, whatever. I thought Lola Bunny's transformation into an actual character was really cool, et cetera, et cetera. And Space Jam was just hot, flaming garbage. But
the recent reboot
so I'm just going to assume that. Say again.
The recent reboot of Looney Tunes was actually pretty decent.
That was one I was told I need to watch, so I should make time to watch that. But I'm even preparing for this film to be like a 2 out of 4 stars, whatever. But that's beside the point. It can't be as bad as Zaslav thinks. It really can't, and they've released worse. So it really must be a case of like. Like the Looney Tunes name has already been kind of tarnished in many different ways. So this, and we know he doesn't care about that. So to see, honestly, the fact that it is a Looney Tunes property and Wile E. Coyote of all people, Wile E. Coyote of all characters who cannot catch a break, this is a picture perfect story, and I cannot wait for the 4-hour Hulu documentary to come out on this. Yeah, I don't know. It's sad all around. And I'm sorry, one more thing is that Joe, if you can control F, putting you on the spot, control F Ryan Coogler. Doesn't really have anything to do with much with him, but control F Ryan Coogler. It's the passage where it said, these executives who trumpet a filmmaker first approach and have recently signed big deals with directors like Ryan Coogler and Paul Thomas Anderson were apparently prepared to trash a movie that they'd never even watched. Which again, that's like storybook level evil shit. Where it's all laid to bear. No subtext anymore. They're just doing it. This is late stage capitalism at its absolute most stunning. And here we are, man. Here we are with the Looney Tunes of all things.
I'm trying to control F this thing, by the way.
I'm so sorry. I put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I scrolled down to like the article below, and I'm trying to scroll back up. That article is gone, man. Warner Bros. wants everything about this movie gone.
There's a great op-ed for anybody watching, or you guys even too. There's a great op-ed I was also going to mention too. It's by Matt Zoller Seitz on RogerEbert.com. It's called "Why Deleting and Destroying Finished Movies Like Coyote versus Acme Should Be a Crime."
Yeah.
And I love his. I just want to read the opening 2 or 3 sentences of this piece. I think this is, and I like Zoller Seitz. He's an excellent writer, but this is an amazing way to open this. He writes, "There's an old joke about a guy who murders his parents, then throws himself on the mercy of the court because he's an orphan. A variant of this thinking is becoming an accepted strategy at major entertainment corporations like Warner Brothers Discovery, which adopted a scorched earth brand of accounting after its 2022 merger that sought to reduce debt by using drastic measures." And I just think that's excellent writing right there. As sad, and I think it's a painfully accurate way to describe this whole mess. We might have news next. I mean, because next week still won't be in time for the earnings call, but we might have news by the end of the month, though, because there's still no finality on this. Even though I think we all know where this is going, there's still no technical finality on this yet. And there might be here by the end of the month. It's really sad. It's really a sad thing. Whether or not the movie's good or not, I think is almost beside the point. I think it has a lot of potential. I think there's reason to believe that this thing looks really good. And there's reason to believe that they're like just the optimism of test screenings, which ordinarily, and I've heard this enough now that I've talked to like even Eli Roth or like Raja Gosnell and Matthew Lillard and stuff like that, kind of referencing Scooby-Doo. These test screenings often do not go very well, especially the very first like couple. So the fact that this was getting actual like real praise in the testing phase is shocking too. It's really interesting. We might have another update on this or the earnings call, or once the earnings call happens on the 23rd.
Everyone learning what the value of the Library of Congress. It's like everyone learning that value right then and there. It's so like he wants us to lean back, but we're all leaning forward now, Zaslav. So content ain't that cheap, man.
It says something in an industry that's gone on for over 100 years that Zaslav might indeed be like the worst person to ever run a major film corporation.
Like purely business wise, Yeah.
I mean, creative wise, he's an affront, but like business wise, this is awful.
Putting aside Weinstein pieces of shit where like sexual assault is involved.
Yes.
Not pardoning, but like putting that aside, purely like creatively and like how you run a business, this is astounding. This is record books right here for Zaslav.
There's a cozy corner in hell for both of those men, for vastly different reasons. That'll do it for us tonight, though. What a great way to end the show. That'll do it for us tonight, though. I wasn't going to subject you guys to Madam Web, and looking at the very early, or they're looking at the reviews of this movie. Holy shit! Holy shit! We're seeing it too. Catherine and I are seeing it.
I gotta find out how bad this really is.
The only thing I know about Madam Web is that terrible poster where that poor woman's face looks just nothing. Just nothing on that face.
The marketing campaign for this movie, the guerrilla marketing campaign, has been interesting because about a month ago, Dakota Johnson came out and did an interview and said acting in front of a blue screen was very strange. And then I think a week later fired her agent. Like, I think that the guerrilla marketing for this movie on Dakota Johnson's end has been astounding. My favorite, I haven't read any of the reviews outside of the headlines, but I saw Matt Singer from Screen Crush posted his review, and it says the headline is Madam Web review. It's better than Morbius.
I saw one from Rolling Stones where it says Madam Web isn't bad. It's worse than you think.
So we're not reviewing that, despite that little lead-in right there. We're going to review Bob Marley, One Love.
Yes.
We're going to review that. We're seeing that tomorrow, so I'm interested to see how this is gonna be. I didn't want to subject because I didn't have high hopes for Madam Web. Just even from the trailer, I thought it looked interesting, but I'm like, this is going to be that every year we get one, every 1 or 2 years we get one dog superhero movie. Yeah. And I think this is it.
And a lot of people always say it was Morbius, but it's like, as someone who saw Morbius, I even had on my worst stuff. It's a bad movie. It's just kind of boring. There's just a level though where you get to like X-Men Apocalypse where it's like, no, this is fucking awful.
Every couple years we get a Morbius, we get an X-Men Apocalypse, we get a Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
You know, we get something that's a real dog, and I think this one is this year's superhero dog. But be that as it may, I'll find out next week. Either way, great show. We're coming back next week with Bob Marley, One Love. Going to be talking about that movie. Super excited for that. In the meantime, though, that does it for us. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, a show that went off without a hitch on my end, thankfully. This has been Sleepless with Steve.